Tune in for a tale, words that set sail.
Digital Splendor, Literature Illuminated.
Okay, so when I say the word Frankenstein, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a giant green guy with some bolts sticking out of his neck, right? But here's the thing. Mary Shelley's original novel, it's not really about the monster. It's about the man who created him. The brilliant, the ambitious, and ultimately the totally doomed Victor Frankenstein. And to really get the monster, we have to understand the man first.
You know, you'd think this story would start in some spooky Gothic castle. But nope. Our story begins on the frozen seas of the Arctic. And those words you see, that's the first thing Victor Frankenstein says to us. It's this desperate warning to an explorer who just pulled him from the ice. It's a warning against a certain kind of ambition, an intoxicating drink that, as you're about to find out, Victor himself has already drank to the very last drop.
So this explorer, his name is Robert Walton, and he's got his own crazy ambition. He wants to be the first person to reach the North Pole. But his whole expedition gets put on pause when his crew spots, well, two figures out on the ice. First, they see this being of gigantic stature on the dog sled. Then a day later, they find this man, Victor, basically half dead and freezing, but still in a furious chase. Once he's safely on the ship, Victor sees that same dangerous fire in Walton's eyes, and that's when he agrees to tell his unbelievable, cautionary tale.
So how in the world did Victor Frankenstein end up on the Arctic ice chasing a monster? To get that, we've got to rewind. Way back to the beginning, back to his home in Geneva. And you need to understand, Victor wasn't some mad scientist, not at all. He was a golden child, born into one of the most respected families in the whole city.
I mean, this guy had the perfect life. His parents absolutely doted on him. They called him their plaything and their idol. He had this beautiful companion, Elizabeth, who was practically his sister and who he adored. And on top of all that, he had this incredible, brilliant mind that was driven by this insatiable thirst to not just learn about the world, but to uncover its deepest, darkest secrets.
So there was this conflict brewing inside young Victor's head. On one hand, he was completely fascinated by the ancient alchemists. You know, the dreamers who were searching for the elixir of life, promising stuff like immortality and ultimate power. He thought their goals were just grand and glorious. But then you have modern science, which to him seemed to deal with boring, small stuff, realities of little worth. He was totally torn between the magic of the past and the practical but kind of uninspiring science of his time.
And this whole internal debate, it follows him right to the University of Ingolstadt. He's actually on the verge of giving up on science completely. He just sees it as this pale imitation of the awesome alchemy he used to love. But then, he sits in on a lecture by a professor, a guy named M. Waldman. And in that one lecture, everything changes.
For Victor, these became the words of fate. Seriously, M. Waldman described modern science not as some boring, practical thing, but as a way to gain new and almost unlimited powers. He made it sound like scientists were the new magicians, commanding lightning and laughing at the invisible world. And just like that, a switch flipped in Victor's head. He saw a new path. Use the real tools of modern science to achieve the godlike dreams of the old alchemists.
And right there, that healthy ambition, it starts to curdle into a full-blown obsession. As months turn into years, he's completely consumed. He stops answering letters from his family. His health just falls apart for 2 solid years. His only focus is studying life and death. And we're not just talking about hitting the books. No, he starts spending his nights in vaults and charnel houses, studying decaying bodies firsthand, all to unlock the secret of life itself.
He sets up this secret lab in a lonely room at the top of his house, a place he himself calls his workshop of filthy creation. And his materials, well, they come from the dissecting room and the slaughterhouse. He is literally digging around among the unhallowed damps of the grave, totally driven by this frantic impulse that even he admits is horrifying, but he just can't stop.
And get this, in his massive ambition, he decides he's not just going to create a regular-sized man. Oh no, he thought working with tiny parts would just slow him down. So he decides to make his creature a giant, about 8 feet tall. Now this isn't just about convenience, it's a peek into his colossal ego. He isn't just creating a person, he's creating a titan, a whole new species that would look up to him and bless him as their creator. At last, after months and months of this feverish, secret work, the moment arrives. On what Victor later calls a dreary night of November, with rain hitting the windows and his candle about to burn out, he gets ready to flip the switch, to breathe a spark of life into the thing lying at his feet.
In Victor's head, this was all going to be beautiful. He'd handpicked the creature's features to be perfect. He imagined this new species that would worship him. But then, that dull yellow eye opens, and the dream shatters instantly. The reality is a catastrophe. The skin is shriveled and tight, the lips are thin and black, and the man who wanted this more than anything is now filled with nothing but breathless horror and disgust.
He bolts from the room and collapses into bed, only to get plunged into the most horrific nightmare you can imagine. He dreams he's holding his beloved Elizabeth, but the second he kisses her, her lips turn the color of death, and she morphs into the decaying corpse of his own dead mother. The message couldn't be clearer. His act of creation is an act of corruption. It taints everything and everyone he loves with the touch of the grave.
He wakes up from this nightmare, and who's standing there by his bed? The creature. Its jaws are open in what might even be a smile. And in that moment, Victor does the one thing that seals both of their fates forever. He runs. He abandons his creation. This is it. This is the moment the entire tragedy hinges on. He doesn't try to talk to it, or teach it, or help it. He just leaves his newborn, confused, and horrifying creation completely and utterly alone in the world. So Victor immediately falls into this nervous fever that lasts for months. By the time he recovers, the memory of his creation feels more like a bad dream than reality, something he can almost convince himself never happened. The creature is gone, and Victor tries to just go back to his old life. But as we all know, you can't outrun the consequences of your actions forever.
His old life comes crashing into his new secret in the most brutal way possible, a letter from his father. The news is just devastating. His youngest brother, William, the sweet, innocent kid, has been murdered. And even though no one else knows it, Victor feels this sickening certainty deep in his gut. The daemon, the monster he let loose on the world, has just claimed its first victim. The horror isn't just in his attic anymore. It's out there, and it's destroying his family.
And this, right here, is where the story really gets going. See, Victor's big sin wasn't playing God. It was his failure to be a father, a guide, a creator who actually takes responsibility for his creation. And it forces us to ask ourselves a pretty heavy question. What do we owe the things we bring into this world, whether it's our kids, our ideas, or new technologies? If you abandon your creation, can you ever really abandon your responsibility for it?